I'm John Carter. I'm Commercial Director for Structured Property Finance at Aldermore Bank. The importance of a experienced relationship management team is that with borrowers that are operating across multiple asset classes, some will operate in certain sectors, but some will have multiple asset classes. And the reason that it's important to have an experienced management team is that those asset classes might move at different paces. So COVID's a really good example of this, where we flexed our risk appetite, and you could imagine that essential retail traded really well. Some non-essential retail didn't trade so well and was reliant on other things. So there's a dichotomy there in terms of how assets will work. And that plays across multiple asset classes, multiple sectors, and multiple geographies as well. So it's really important to have a team or a management team that understands the borrower's positives, but also the borrower's challenges, because our point is property is not just for Christmas. They tend to be longer term investments. So you need someone that understands the longer term strategy, working alongside a borrower. And the reality is that those strategies might change over time. But the importance of geographical knowledge is really key, because a property's value or a business's value will be driven by location, property type, and the demand for that. If there's no demand in that location, it doesn't really have a value. And there are some properties that end up like that. In areas where you have less population and less demand, those values can diminish over time. And I always liken it a bit like with people who have children going into schools and school catchment areas. Why is it that a property on one side of a road is worth 50,000 more than one on the other side? Because that's in a catchment area for a school. And it gets down to that granular level of geographical knowledge. And I say this regularly. I mean, I'm fortunate that my role has been, for a long time, has been a national role. So I do know lots of people in cities around the country, and that helps. And I'd use this example quite a lot, because if you say about a city or a town, sometimes people just go, "Ooh," and the question is always, "Oh, when were you last there?" And if they haven't been there, it's, "Well, what do you know about it?" And cities change, towns change, and that geographical local knowledge really drives the quality of our decision making to back people. And I come back to I made this comment right at the very start. Property is just not for Christmas. These are long-term investment plays, or the assets should be used for longer term. So you've got to be really clear about the strategic importance, and that drives to a geography as well as the asset class. So we are quite a small organisation. There's about 2,500 people in general across the organisation, but the teams are quite small. So I report into an exco. We can be quite fleet of foot in terms of decision making, and we have access and conversations at the highest level all the time. So in some way that helps. We don't have to book in. I think we hear this regularly with borrowers asking us questions. Do you have to book into a credit committee? And generally it's as quick as we can get the detail and put it down on a piece of paper to present and then discuss with somebody. There are targets in place by the government about being net carbon zero by 2050. For certain assets by 2025 or 2030, they have to reach certain minimum levels of EPC. So doing nothing's not an option, because doing nothing might leave an asset stranded and not having a value, because if you're not at those levels, you cannot sell or rent. So you end up with an asset that doesn't really have a value until it's got CapEx spend in it. So we have been we've done updated notes to all our borrowers to make them aware of what's coming forward. We're there to try and work with them to try and improve that. And it's one of those things with any regulation like this, it might seem a long way away, but it's not. That's important for our borrowers, because it's the long-term viability and value of the assets that they own that is potentially at risk. So it's a risk to the borrower, but it's clearly a risk to the bank as well. It's their equity, we're in at the senior debt level, but it's their equity. So that's the problem, is that if the values do fall, that's their equity at risk. So it's really important that we ask those questions, but work with borrowers in terms of how do we maintain that value longer term. And the message is Aldermore is there to grow long term with our customers. We, as I said, our strapline is to back people in business and in life to go for it. We are a bank that is looking to grow. Our backstory in terms of Aldermore is it was founded in 2008 out of the last global financial crisis. So we were there to lend money to people when other banks weren't. So for us, we see the current turmoil as an opportunity, one, to earn the trust of some new customers and create a new backstory, whilst also supporting and working long term with our existing customers. I think that a lot of our plaudits that come from customers, and this is, if they all say this about us, I would buy into this. They say that we're easy to deal with. And for me, given that we're a bank, money's a given, the cost of it, yes, you can negotiate. Being easy to deal with is a really core element, and being easy to deal with, understanding and trusting us for a long-term relationship, to me, that's a key element in that property lending space. And if we continue to do that, then I think we will be okay long term as well. But I think our borrowers will be as well.